Okay, we are going to get started. Today I would like to introduce Dr. Graham. Dr. Graham is a 2010 graduate of South Dakota State University and a 2014 graduate of Iowa State University College of Veterinary Medicine, where he received his Doctor of Veterinary Medicine and Master of Science degree. After graduating from Iowa State University, he worked as a herd veterinarian and regional production director for a large integrated swine production system. In 2017, he joined the Swine Vet Center, expanding the practice in northwest Iowa, southwest Minnesota, and eastern South Dakota, among other locations. He lives in Milford, Iowa, with his wife, Sasha, and 2 daughters. Please welcome Dr. Graham.
Thank you, Lindsay. Everybody hear me okay? All right. So, first off, fair warning on this presentation. I bring you no data, no numbers, no nothing. All I'm going to give you is questions, so hopefully you get something out of this. This talk kind of originated from a frustration of mine, is that, been practicing now for 9 years, and it seems like when we talk about biosecurity, we're always talking about the same stuff over and over again. And we don't always look on the bigger picture and say, what are things are we doing as production teams, as veterinarians, that are impacting execution of biosecurity? So this is the topics I want to cover for this talk. So first off, Swine Vet Center, we are 17 veterinarians. All we do is pigs, based out of St. Peter, Minnesota. So it was founded, for those of you unfamiliar with the practice, Doctors Tim Lola and Paul Yeski founded the practice in 1990. They were at a large mixed animal practice, and were spending a lot of time developing family producers in southern Minnesota. The other veterinarians were getting a little frustrated that they weren't back to do DA surgeries on cattle, so they decided to go off and start their own practice and focus strictly on swine. We've grown a lot in the last few years. We're at 17 veterinarians. We've just had 2 new grads join us, and also another veterinarian that was with another production system. So what we do, we focus on making our clients better. That's our goal. We are primarily health and production consultation is what we offer for services. We work with anywhere from small independent producers. I've got a couple of show pig clients that I've pawned off to a couple of the other people, all the way up to large integrated production systems that own all the way through to the retail counter. We also do some sow farm production management. We manage about 20,000 sows, have a new build project going on this summer, and also have 4 contracted wean to finish sites that we run for some of our larger clients. So this quote was one of my favorite ones from Dr. Paul Yeski, one of his clients. He said, "Biosecurity is expensive. If I spend everything on biosecurity, I will lose my business. If I spend nothing on biosecurity, I will lose my business." So this is all about where is the middle ground. So the components of biosecurity, the first off is there's two big buckets, right? Bioexclusion, biocontainment. I'm going to focus on the 3 things that we commonly see within production in our facilities that impact that. So the people, how we make biosecurity difficult and how we can make it better. Facilities, what are things, design flaws of facilities that we have that hinder the execution of biosecurity, and then the pathogen itself and how our production practices may be influencing the change we're seeing in our particularly PRRS. So to give you a little idea, everybody's familiar with this map. This is the density of hogs in the U.S. So this is our corner of the world. It doesn't get much denser than northwest Iowa, southwest Minnesota. Swine Vet Center is located there in St. Peter, Minnesota. I live in Milford, Iowa, so right in the heart of hog dense country. We deal with biosecurity issues pretty regularly. So 2 components of biosecurity: bioexclusion. How do I keep disease from getting into my herd? And then biocontainment. How do I keep disease from getting out of my herd and into another herd? Glad Dr. Holtkamp's here because I'm going to coach you through about half of this thing. So bioexclusion, what do we focus on? What are the things we are always talking about in our meetings with our production staff? And it's always clean, dirty lines, transport, sanitation. Are we getting trucks clean? Showering in and out and adhering to downtime. Rodent baiting, making sure we're not having rodents go back and forth, and mortality removal. So we talk about this a lot. It gets hammered into everyone we work with. And I don't want to sit up here and say that we can just forget about these things, because we get it wrong pretty regularly. So I like to take pictures of things when I see them really out of whack. This was a clean dairy line, new wean pigs just placed in a nursery, and I'm not sure where the outside starts and the inside begins. I took this picture, kind of hard to see, but this is a multimeter in a sow farm. This is a UV chamber to bring things in, but that multimeter is just covered in manure. So that's coming into a sow farm. This is a 4,400 sow farm. This was this is one of those moments where you pull onto a farm and you can't believe your eyes, right? So I pulled into this sow farm, and this sow farm had just broke with PED. You can see the piles of dead piglets in the rendering box. And as I pulled around, one of the staff is pulling a dead sow out of the side of the building. But to my point, how do we make this more difficult? So we don't have a proper drop off this door. So he's trying to get the job done as best he sees fit. But because we've got facility flaws, things that we are making it harder for them to do, he's doing it as best he can, but it's creating a pretty big biosecurity risk. Also, you'll notice that these rendering boxes are right up next to the building. We come to find out that the owner of the facility, who we leased this farm from, he was responsible for dead removal, got tired of hauling the dead box to the end of the road, so he told the rendering truck, just put it right up next to the building, and we broke PED, so it was pretty easy. I really like this picture. Ethan Spronk in our practice took this picture. He was standing in a finisher office, and this dog came up just to say hello. He also left him a nice little present in the office. So we get it wrong. I'm not going to say we're without flaws, but my focus is going to be on how we can make it easier for our people to execute this. So bioexclusion, how do we make it harder for people to get it done right? And what I've found is that one of the biggest things revolves around timing. There's things that have to happen on the farm, risk events, as you'd call them, Dr. Holtkamp. How do we manage the timing of those things? So vaccinations, loading in and out, site closing out and washing, do we have enough time? And then mass treating. But these all have one thing in common, and that's people. So in our part of the world, contract finishing is the most common model. And the demographics have really changed. 20 years ago, it was an owner, caretaker, a farmer that built a barn, and that was his secondary income, taking care of pigs, had maybe 2 barns at the most, and then had the second generation or had hired labor that helped only on those sites. They'd handle all the loading in and all the power washing themselves, all the vaccinations and mass treatments if we needed them. And if there was ever a problem, you just give them a call and it was just one call away. Well, today that's really changed. So what's changed, and really it's the economics of contract finishing. It's pretty tough with the cost of buildings and the price that we're getting for contract finishing to be taking a secondary income off that. So it becomes more of an asset to the farming operation in terms of manure and a money asset rather than a revenue stream. And the other piece is a lack of interest from the next generation. My generation, the millennials, are way more interested in GPS systems and tractors and doing all the agronomic fun stuff versus taking care of hogs every day. So what that translates into, what it looks like today, almost, I would say the majority of labor is contract labor or it's hired. They usually chore multiple sites in our part of the world, and with multiple sites comes multiple systems. We would have, when I first started out in practice, it was kind of unheard of to chore someone else's pigs, and I can tell you today that it's very common that labor will cross between systems just strictly because of the availability of labor, the lack of availability of labor. We have separate crews now for loading in and power washing and vaccinating and mass treating, and big challenge there is if we have problems, a lot of times we play the telephone game because I don't speak Spanish. I should, but you have to usually find someone who can speak Spanish and English to interpret for you for the one person that's on the site doing chores. So it really becomes a hard language barrier and communication barrier to get things changed and improved. So what can we do as veterinarians and producers? The big thing is know your labor. Understand where they're going day to day, what their responsibilities are and what their ability is to get the job done. The other piece here that seems really simple, but make site-specific equipment a priority. And when I say that is that usually when we're sitting in a meeting, we're talking about, hey, we're going to go vaccinate this group of pigs. Hey, do they have sort boards out there? Do they have syringes? Yeah, they got them. Well, do they? Usually they don't. And I will tell you that when you tell someone to go get a job done, they're going to get it done as best they can. They're also going to run over to 3 other sites and grab the sorting panels and bring them there, because you didn't tell them to go buy a new one and make sure it's at that site. So it has to be the responsibility of someone to make sure that that equipment is on site. It's spend the money now or pay for it later. So yeah, buying a lot of equipment is expensive, but you're going to pay for it in health breaks anyway. Define downtime. A lot of this contract labor, there is no nighttime for them. It's loading out at 2 in the morning, receiving wean pigs at 6 in the morning, and it's the same people. So if that is the case, we really need to be communicating with that site caretaker to make sure that we're adhering to biosecurity expectations. Maybe that's okay within your system, but have the expectation as they say, oh yeah, I had a night down. Well, a night was going home and showering. That was really all it was. Okay, so biocontainment. Pigs, people, and facilities all influence biocontainment. What we do to keep disease on the farm and not getting it out into other herds, we always talk about showering in and out, site-specific clothing, equipment, and downtime like we just talked about. But what I'm going to talk about a little bit is the facility itself, breeding a challenge for biocontainment within pig dense areas. So in our part of the world, the expansion of the swine industry in the 90s and the early 2000s, there was a lot of sow farms that got built in really pig dense areas. I think if we, hindsight's 2020, we probably would have never put those farms there, but they're there, and they're going to continue to operate. Good access to corn, and plenty of land for manure application, and processing was close by. So at the same time, PRRS was really spreading through North America, and we didn't truly understand how to manage that. The big thing that these facilities lack is isolation and on-site gilt development. Now, many facilities have added these, both isolation and on-site gilt development. None of them were filtered. We've filtered a lot of them retroactively now, but I will tell you there's plenty of sow farms in dense areas that are not filtered today. And they also lack setback from other swine facilities. As you noted, that pig density is highly correlated with disease events. So despite these issues, these farms are going to continue to operate with construction costs where they're at. These farms are not going away. So what do we need to do to help manage biosecurity on these sites? So the arguments that I get from clients on site gilt development, and for those of you that aren't familiar with PRRS elimination or other disease elimination, the big thing that we need is time. 210 days for PRRS, 240 days for mycoplasma elimination, where we're bringing no new animals into that farm. And to be able to do that and still maintain proper production, we need to have a supply of gilts on farm. So the argument that I had from one of my clients, he flat out told me, he goes, I can buy gilts cheaper than I can raise them myself, and I'm going to keep doing it. So, okay, I hear you. And also managing those gilts on site requires a new labor set. And the biggest issue with this is that if a lender is involved, if we have to go out and get capital to do this, we don't wean more pigs. The throughput doesn't change on paper. However, in the bigger picture, it's something we can help to bring this message across. So because of this, well, I don't say because of this, but one thing that is true is that these disease outbreaks are happening more frequently on these farms, where previously we were able to take these farms, 18 months between breaks. 9 to 10 months between breaks is very common. So because of that, these farms that had previously said we're going to eliminate PRRS and go to PRRS negative production, they've said we're not going to do that because by the time I get it out, I'm breaking again and I have to reload with gilts anyways. So a lot of farms have just moved towards exposing gilts and keeping the virus on the farm. That's nothing new. We've done that. But I will tell you, within my practice area, it's been more common to just maintain stability versus eliminate virus because of the disruption of parity and everything else that goes along with it. So we talked a little bit about what the downside is of not having on-site gilt development. Extended time to low prevalence, that's the new term, not extended time to negative, so we have longer time that it's taken for us to get a stable pig out of this farm by exposing gilts. And we also, the big piece that I want to make clear within this talk is that the resident virus is never eliminated. We're never getting the virus that we have off the farm. So what does that mean for new viruses that might enter it? And the other piece is that we're creating area disease pressure within our NGF herds. So typically these farms are surrounded by nursery grow finish, and we're just more or less creating a larger cloud of virus within that area. This is Dr. Trevison's work showing that farms with more strains of PRRS in those herds will take longer to move to stability. I'd say this is very, very true clinically out in the field. We see this pretty commonly. We have an evolving understanding of PRRS. So we're previously, when we use OR5 sequencing, which basically is just one portion of the PRRS virus that we looked at the genetic makeup to determine is this the same virus or a different one. And what we've learned is that that's probably not the whole story. That's a very small portion of the virus, and where previously we had assumed that when changes in the virus happened, we pick up an OR5 that's the same as what we had before. However, clinically the sows are reacting, they're aborting. It's clearly a new virus. What we believe now is that it's probably more likely recombination. So multiple viruses within an animal or within a herd, as they're replicating, will recombinate genetic material between each other to create a new virus. So this is whole genome, I think it's, whole genome sequencing showing that, we've got, the green is one virus here that recombinated with this virus here, and so we get a new one. So as Paul Yeski would say, the next bad PRRS is coming out of your area, Jordan. So he chews me out for all the new problems. So we're assigned with the task of putting a value on the intangible. So as a veterinary industry, we have to continue to push towards farms that are able to eliminate viruses, eliminate pathogens, and maintain production. And we have to be able to explain that concept without saying you're going to get more pigs out the door. Because in reality, if we don't come to a position where we can eliminate diseases within an area, we could create a spiral of recombination, right? If we never get new viruses out, if we're never eliminating, are we running into the potential of just creating the next virus and the next virus on top of it? So the key points for my talk here, bioexclusion, biocontainment should be thought of on a broader scale. So think of the people. How are we setting our people up to execute biosecurity correctly versus saying, well, he's not doing the job right. Well, does he have all the tools to do it right? The facilities, how are our facilities set up that it makes it hard for our people to get biosecurity done right? And then also we've got to remember particularly PRRS and how our decisions to maintain virus or to continue to expose might be creating more problems for us down the road. So with that, thank you. I'll open it up for questions. Got a lot of blank looks out there.
I was waiting to see if anybody else wanted to debate. So Jordan, nice job. I couldn't agree more with some of the main points you made. How do you, every farm, every system's a little different, quite a bit different actually about how they do things, how the sites are set up and so forth. So how do you sort of prioritize where you want to, often biosecurity costs money or it takes time, right? One of those two things. So how do you prioritize where you spend the money so you don't break cause them to go broke by spending too much that it's not going to work?
Yeah, I always say start somewhere, right? And that's the hard part for a lot of these systems is you've got all these issues, problems with their facilities and their production system that you're putting out in front of them, and they'll get a blank look sometimes, say, man, I just can't fix this, right? It's too broke. And starting with the easy wins is what I've had best luck with clients, to show that, okay, we're going to stop rendering on the sow farm. We got to start composting, and how do we get it done right? We're going to stop going to 5 farms with 1 tractor to get all the deads and causing that interaction between those sites. The other thing, this is maybe a little diversion off your question, but how we've been able to sell the value of some of these improvements, we have the advantage that we work with a pretty wide range of clients, right? And most of those clients are very receptive to sharing, right, and to showing what works. So taking a producer, to a farm that's made those changes to show this is how it could be, that's really helped. It seems simple that just a simple tour would change someone's mind, but they see it and they say, man, like this could be a lot better than what I'm dealing with today. So that's an advantage we got within our practice. I know, having come from a production system, sometimes when that's all you see, you don't know the reality outside your own 4 walls. That can be really tough, but peer groups, I think, are very important to share these messages and share the wins that other people have successfully had.
I agree. We don't benchmark that very much.
No.
I have questions for you.
Yep.
Very good presentation. Regarding the on-site GDU.
Yeah.
Well, there's a tendency, especially when larger and larger integrated farms become emerge, 3 or 4 sites shared on-site GDU.
Yep.
So that population that might be 20,000 per pod. Per pod. And when I see in China or some areas in the U.S., this kind of production system, they have on-site GDU, but it seems that the disease never ends, especially for diseases like PRRS, this endemic diseases. So I might argue that on-site GDU, when you mention that on-site GDU is better for the disease elimination, is it because that they tend to be small size farms rather than this big pot that have 20,000 farm sows? Because for a GDU like that, you will create another big population of animals. So that's why I see the disease never ends. So I would like to see your comments on that.
Yeah, and so I think I understand your question, Jack, but I'll put this in a couple different ways. We have some larger integrated systems that they don't have on-site gilt development, and maybe I should rephrase that to say on-site gilt development and dedicated gilt development, right? So they have, gilt development finishers where it's kind of a wheel, where this farm gets gilts this week and this farm gets gilts the next week. And they have the ability and the size that when a farm breaks with PRRS, they're able to pull gilts to a dedicated site, multiple ages, and get that disease exposure done at that time to acclimate them to the virus on the farm. And no negative animals, they might be vaccinated, are brought into the farm until it's confirmed that we have eliminated virus on the sow farm. On the on-site gilt developers, what you might be talking about a little bit is internal gilt replacement, potentially. Yeah, so I have a few producers in South Dakota that they do internal gilt multiplication and grow finish all on the same site. So when we've broke with PRRS on those sites, it's a pretty hard conversation to say that you will no longer be keeping gilts from here on out. And so we stop bringing the gilts into the herd. Everything goes out into finishing, and essentially the gilt development wing goes empty until we've eliminated virus. And at that time, once we've eliminated the virus, we bring in select weight animals all the way down to wean age and repopulate that gilt pool. At that time, once we've confirmed that they've gone negative, they can start maintaining their own gilts again. So that's the big disadvantage of on-site internal replacement. But if we're bringing in off-site gilts at feeder pig age or wean pig age and able to acclimate them to the herd, then we've got much better success doing it that way versus trying to keep them off the sow and internally replacing them. So does that answer your question, Jack? Okay. Go ahead.
So I guess I had a question about your older producers and enforcing biosecurity. So I guess within site assessments, I've encountered the older generation with not enforcing as much biosecurity lines and having to kind of teach them what biosecurity is. How would you, I guess, go about educating those types of people and, I guess, trying to get them to understand how important it is?
Yeah, so you're taking an age dig out here. Boy, I hope no one takes offense to that, right? Calling you all old and stubborn, so. I would say that, yeah, there's the old school producers that, hey, I've done it this way for 30 years. I'm going to keep doing it this way, and to heck with you. But that's no different than we've got some young, ambitious ones that really say, I'm not going to spend my time showering in and out. I'm going to get down to the next site. I think leading by example is really important there. Systems where I work with that we go out on the farm with the owner and the whole production crew's there, and the owner just walks right through the shower. It's like, man, come on. I can't. They are watching you. And as a veterinarian, I have to remember that the production staff is watching me. If I make a skip in it, they're going to do the same. So the example is huge when it comes to biosecurity. And the expectation, we say it all the time, biosecurity is a culture. And it really is. I mean, it's the culture that it gets done right. And as long as that culture is there, then you're going to have better luck with it.
Okay.
Good questions. What I missed, Paul? Okay. Well, thank you, guys.